This One Time in My Pot Patch by Helga Roe Conkin. I eyed the large pile of fertilizer bags in the dirt driveway, barely visible in the dawn light. My heart beat fast. I had to get going before the feds were up in the sky doing their scouting and terrorizing, but I had never participated in the family business before. My brother had grown his first pot garden when he was 10 years old because he wanted a motorcycle, a Honda 80, but I was not so easily sold on being an outlaw pot farmer. When I was 10, the feds landed in our front yard and arrested my stepdad, sending my mom on the run. I was in school in town, frozen in fear when a family friend told me the news. It was the spring of 1991. I was a junior in high school, and cannabis was still illegal. My parents were back-to-the-land hippies with a homesteading lifestyle being supported by a small pot patch on the mountain near our house. My anxiety began when I started kindergarten and had to lie about what my parents did for a living. Then President Reagan's Campaign Against Marijuana Planting, CAMP for short, was created. Waking up every day to the woof, woof of camp helicopters somewhere in the mountains only exacerbated my fears. Damn Reagan! I was terrified of being caught by the camp agents hunting me in their helicopters. Army men wielding loaded weapons designed for war. I wanted a different life than this outlaw one that fed our homesteading life. I wanted the life I watched and envied every night on our black and white television we ran off solar power. Growing pains was the life I longed for. Sure, I'd observed the ins and outs of growing marijuana since I was in preschool. I was taught to tell the difference between a female plant and a male, and I was a pretty good trimmer too, having grown up sewing and crocheting. I had crafty hands and a keen eye. I just never wanted to participate in my parents' illegal activities. My parents weren't terrible people, just full of ideas that included breaking down the patriarchy. I liked them enough to ask them to chaperone prom my junior year because neither of them had attended their own. I liked them, but I had to push for what I valued, like socializing with my peers and having a normal high school year, going to prom, going to college, and what I wanted more than anything for my senior year, to be a cheerleader, something I dreamed of since the 4th grade. My parents didn't believe in football. Boys smashing their heads against one another for a prize, too much like war. And war is what they'd protested their entire adult lives. And cheerleading was a silly sport, mocking women's rights, which they'd also marched for. Yet somehow they'd finally let me try out, and making the cheerleading squad was a dream come true. My mom pointed out the obvious problem. Cheer uniforms, a prom dress, and college applications are gonna cost money we just don't have. And then she warned, "You're gonna have to grow a garden this year." My whole body clenched. I could barely talk about our marijuana lifestyle with my family, let alone grow with them. But I knew I had no choice. I had to join the family business. Standing under the canopy of trees that morning, Mom readying to head to her own garden, I sighed loudly so my mom would hear and feel guilty about making this my life. I faced a long day of hard labor while avoiding the eye of the feds hunting me with their helicopters. I slung a 25-pound bag of fertilizer over my shoulder. Don't forget to take a different route each time so you don't make an obvious trail leading directly from the house to the pot garden. This was the sort of sign the feds looked out for. I know, I said, rolling my eyes. Trotting across the open meadow that surrounded our home, I stepped into the vast forest of pine, oak, and madrone trees. The ground was covered in fallen leaves, holding tight to the last spring rains, emitting a sweet scent. I took a deep breath to calm my nerves. Dodging gullies carved out by streams that ran strong in winter, I did my best to walk on branches fallen in winter storms. When I finally arrived at the holes we dug in the hard-packed clay soil the previous weekend, I dropped the bag and jogged back to grab another. I could only carry one bag at a time. And there were 10 holes. This meant I had to make 20 passes from the garden to the house and back again. Oh yeah, and watch out for rattlesnakes. Fuck my life. I spent the rest of the trek reminding myself why I would stoop so low as to break the law. It's not that I hated pot or even thought it should be illegal. I understood that outlawing a plant that helped some people feel better in a much healthier way than street drugs or most pharmaceutical drugs was nonsense. And I wasn't some goody-goody who never broke the rules, like my brother liked to say. I was just highly motivated by staying out of jail. Oh. By the time I delivered the last bag of fertilizer, it was nearing noon. Woof, woof. The first camp helicopter was prowling the skies. I whipped my head up, scouting overhead. I didn't see anything. The sound was still distant, but the blades beating the air matched my heartbeat, fluttering in my chest like a tiny moth threatened by a hawk. I heard my mom's voice. Keep your head down so they don't get a picture of your face. I looked around, eyeing a space under some bushes, knowing camp was steadily coming nearer. Woof, woof, woof. I returned my attention back to the bags of fertilizer, pulling one closer to the hole it was destined for. I ripped open the plastic and dumped the soil in, wiping drops of sweat from my brow. Please let this torture just be over. Woof, woof. The sound was growing louder. I could barely breathe as the camp helicopter blades cut through the sky, coming closer still. Oh, crap, I cursed, glancing longingly at my chosen hidey hole, then back at the bags of fertilizer. The marijuana wasn't going to plant itself, and I had cheer uniforms and a prom dress to buy. Oh, I groaned and got back to work. Drag, rip, dump the soil. Drag, rip, dump. Woof, woof. I yelped. The helicopter was now directly overhead and so loud I covered my ears. Feeling like there was nowhere good to hide, I dove under some bushes and did my best to cover myself in decaying leaves. I'd let the thing get too close. Did they see me? Did my dark clothes help me blend in? Why didn't I own camouflage clothes like my brother? And then, slowly, the green raptor in the sky started to fly away, continuing its search on the other side of the mountain. When the woof woof faded, I jumped up and ran home. I slammed open the door and declared, nope, I'm not doing it. This is why I'm going to college. I couldn't stop the tears from playing tracks through the dirt on my cheeks. My mom hugged me. I understand. I was scared too. My mom ended up growing my garden for me, clipping and selling it. After harvest, she handed me a checkbook for an account with $500. I paid off the uniforms and paid the fees for the applications. I went on to graduate from Humboldt State University, and I have never once regretted my decision not to go into the family business. I've come to understand my parents' choices better and even appreciate the sacrifice my mom made to give me that money. Still, it took over a decade, well into the 2000s, to stop flinching when I heard a helicopter. I learned I actually had PTSD. And when pot was finally legalized in California, I joined the trend and turned to the very medicine that led to my anxiety in the first place. I started taking gummies for my nerves. Thank you.
Helga, you just had this one time on my pot farm, performed on stage. How do you feel?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was really fun to watch her. She pulled it off really well, and it made me want to cry and laugh.
The audience really seemed to be on your side. So talk about balancing funny and not funny and those heartfelt moments with the comedy. Can you tell us a little bit of how you did that as a writer?
I think I just told the story, and I'm not really a funny writer, so I was pretty grateful that it came across as funny. But I just think it's an important part of the whole marijuana story, the history, to understand that it wasn't all drugs and fun. It was terrifying for a lot of us.
How did it feel to watch your actress on stage perform for you? How did that feel?
Oh, wonderful. I thought she did an amazing job. It was really neat to see it come to life.
Beatrice, this is your first time in the Memoir Showcase. Tell us a little bit about the experience and what it felt like to be on stage with Helga in the audience.
Oh my gosh, it was awesome. I don't know, I don't think that I've really gotten to meet the writer of the piece in this kind of close way, and so knowing that I was taking on her words, I felt a lot of a responsibility in that, and that was very special.
Helga, last question. Advice for people next year thinking about entering the Memoir Showcase? Would you tell them to do it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I didn't expect to get picked at all. I just went for it. I thought it would be a good experience. And I was a little nervous about having to rewrite. And I had told myself, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to, take a breath when I'm not sure if I agree, and I'm going to do it. And I'm glad. I'm really glad I had the experience.
Thank you both. Okay.